Hello, my name's Mason Tsai, and I'm doing the Israeli-Palestine conflict for my ethics project. And so, the moral issue I will be attempting to answer is, should Palestine be given statehood from Israel? And so, a brief overview of this topic is that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been an issue marked by power struggle and fanatical violence for decades. The very beginning of the beginning roots for this conflict can be traced back to biblical times when Moses led the Jews out of Egypt into Palestine. And Palestine would eventually fall under British control, who, under the Balfour Declaration of 1917, declared Jewish occupation of Palestine, despite the majority of Palestine being Palestinian, not Jewish. And so, when the British mandate of Palestine expired eventually, the Palestinians had no choice but to fight the Israelis who were taking over territory in western Palestine, who they believed belonged to them, even though it technically did not. And eventually the Israelis would prevail in this conflict, and this led to thousands of Palestinians fleeing into neighboring Arab nations, viewed as refugees from a nation they once called a home. And so coexistence between the Israelis and Palestinians has resulted strongly in favor of the Israelis and to the detriment of the Palestinians. My stance and answer on this issue is that the Palestinians should be granted their statehood from Israel, and my reasons why are that if the Palestinians are given statehood, it could actually result in less fighting since the two sides will have two independent states and be separated from each other. And so they've clearly shown that they don't play well in the sandbox together, and I feel that the Palestinians have been at a strong disadvantage thus far and have suffered more as a result, being treated as second-class citizens from the Israelis, and have suffered more in the conflict. This can be seen in this graphic here, which shows that 4,006 people since January 2005 have been killed due to the conflict, with 168 only being Israelis, with the majority of which, 3,838, being Palestinians, showing that more Palestinians have actually died in this conflict, more so than the Israelis. And this image here of buildings exploding and women and children cowering once again shows that countless lives have been lost on both sides of this horrible conflict, showing that there needs to be action taken and that independent states could actually be the most beneficial since both sides will have governments of their own to call. However, objections to Palestinian statehood can be seen by three main ones. The Palestinians are terrorists and should not be given statehood, which is seen by Margaret Herons, who states that the Palestinian government is meanwhile riven. Terrorists control one half of the territories, and the other half is controlled by a former terrorist. Another claim is that the two sides are not very likely to agree to terms, which is seen in a Gale Opposing Viewpoints article, which states throughout 2012, 2013, and 2014, Hamas and Israel exchanged fire with deadly results. Ceasefire agreements were made and quickly ignored. And so another objection is that it would never be passed by the US and would be rejected almost immediately, which can be seen by John Bolton, who states that if the resolution passed, the US should just ignore it and consider cutting off funding to the UN. And an example which shows that there is some merit to Margaret Herons is that a number of suicide bombings led by Palestinians have actually led to a number of Israeli fatalities, showing that the Palestinians are not innocent in this conflict. However, my objection to this is that, yes, the Palestinians have done horrible things to Israelis. However, we have to realize that the Israelis have put a shadow over their Palestinians, and the Palestinians have lived under that shadow for most of their existence. And so this can be seen in Benin Hajar's article, which states Palestinians, Arab citizens of Israel, have had a difficult struggle to maintain their cultural and political identity in a state that officially regards expression of Palestinian and Arab national sentiment as subversive. And so this obviously shows that the Palestinians have never truly had a home, and thus they do these things out of self-defense. And once again, I am not defending their actions and what they've done. They've done horrible things, but I can show a bit more empathy to Palestinians since they've clearly suffered and they only want the right thing for their people and a free state and a place to call home. And they've never truly had that yet. And so we must see this, that the Palestinians don't have necessarily horrible intentions, but they just want to find a place to call home. And so another rebuttal to that the two sides will never come to terms is that we have to look at the bigger picture, and then we can eventually stop the bloodshed that's happening. This can be seen by David Unger, who states, indefinitely prolonged occupation would be prescription for more terror, more death, more economic pain on both sides, further radicalization of Palestinian opinion, and widening schism between Israel's demography and its democracy. And so we can if the two sides can come to terms, they can see that the bloodshed that is happening benefits nobody, and both sides are suffering as a result of it. The Palestinians suffer in that there's further radicalization and further deaths to them, and Israel's democracy is falling apart because of it. And so if the two sides can put down arms, lay down their arms, and come to terms, they can eventually stop the bloodshed and see the bigger picture, and that no one wins in this conflict. It's just a meat grinder, and that both sides will lose countless citizens. So another rebuttal to the claim that the U.S. should reject an offer like that, or would reject an offer like Palestinian statehood. The thing is that the Palestinian statehood is a very bipartisan topic in U.S. political parties, as seen by Ben Mir, who states that Obama insisted the only solution to the Arab-Israeli conflict rests on creating two independent states, a Jewish and a Palestinian state, living side by side in peace, growing together and prospering together as neighbors. And so this clearly shows an opposite of that. The U.S. would reject a proposal for Palestinian statehood, since our former president Barack Obama actually vouched for this. But the thing is, it's such a bipartisan topic in the U.S. political parties, with the Democrats leaning more so to the Palestinians' aid, while the Republicans lean more so to the Israelis' aid, as seen by our current administration led by Donald Trump, who supports the Israelis more and has thus declared Palestinian statehood as not a thing. And so this can be seen in this graphic, which clearly shows that the Republicans sympathize with the Israeli party much more than they do the Palestinians, and vice versa with the Democrats, who sympathize more with the Palestinians more so than they do with the Israelis. And so the Catholic view can be seen in Pacem on Terris, which is written in 1963, which is Latin for peace on earth, and it was made by Pope John Paul II, who actually comments on the conflict, stating that the fratricidal struggle that daily convulses the Holy Land and brings into conflict the forces shaping the immediate future of the Middle East shows clearly the need for men and women who have conviction will implement policies firmly based on the principle of respect for human dignity and human rights, which clearly shows he believes action must be taken in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And actually, in a way, the Catholic Church believes that the Palestinians should be granted statehood, as seen by a USCCB article, which states, the following the Holy See's lead in recognizing the state of Palestine, addressing the security concerns of Israel, and the right of all to live in safety, which obviously shows that the Church wants Israel to back off from Palestine and the Palestinians to be given their statehood. And what leading on to what Pope John Paul II said, he believes that he and the church are in agreement that there is obvious discrimination happening in the conflict and human rights are being violated, and it's very inexcusable what is happening right now. And so leading on to what my stance is, further actions must be taken, such as recognizing Palestinian statehood and giving them that statehood, so we can decrease the violence in what is happening right now in the conflict, so we can lead to peace in the future. And as the end of my presentation, thank you for watching and have a good day.